A single wave can be taller than a 10-story building. But that's nothing compared to what happens in some of the other places we're about to visit. Because scattered across our planet are natural forces so dangerous that even standing nearby can be a serious risk. Today, we'll journey to those places, from giant ocean waves and erupting volcanoes to some of the harshest environments on Earth, and discover what makes them among nature's most dangerous forces. Most people would never willingly stand next to an 80-foot wall of moving water. Yet every winter, thousands of people do exactly that in Nazaré. They gather beside a small red lighthouse on Portugal's Atlantic coast, watching the horizon for something that can appear almost unreal. Waves taller than many buildings, waves powerful enough to destroy boats, overwhelm experienced surfers, and remind everyone watching just how small human beings really are. What makes this place so dangerous isn't a storm. It's the fact that these giants can arrive even when the coastline appears calm. The secret lies beneath the ocean. Just offshore is the Nazaré Canyon, a massive underwater trench stretching more than 140 miles, or about 230 kilometers. As Atlantic swells race toward the coast, the canyon helps focus their energy, producing some of the largest waves ever recorded. That danger has turned Nazaré into the world's most famous big wave surfing destination. In 2020, German surfer Sebastian Stutner rode a wave measured at more than 86 feet, or 26 meters. At that size, a mistake isn't simply a wipeout. It can become a life-threatening situation within seconds. But giant waves aren't the only way nature displays its power. Standing too close to the edge here can be more dangerous than it looks. For much of the year, the ground is soaked by constant spray. Visibility can disappear without warning, and the roar of the water is so loud that conversation becomes almost impossible. Known locally as Mosi Oa Tunya, meaning the smoke that thunders, Victoria Falls is one of the largest waterfalls on Earth. The Zambezi River plunges over a cliff more than 5,600 feet wide, or about 1.7 kilometers, sending a curtain of water crashing nearly 360 feet, or 108 meters, into the gorge below. During peak flow, more than 130 million gallons of water can pass over the edge every minute. What makes the falls especially dangerous is that the river appears surprisingly calm just upstream. In some places, visitors can even walk near the edge. Yet only a short distance away, the entire river suddenly disappears into a narrow chasm. Generations of local people have respected the falls for that reason. Beautiful from a distance, but unforgiving to anyone who underestimates them. And while water can carve through solid rock over millions of years, the next force on our journey doesn't need millions of years. It can reshape the landscape in a matter of seconds. Most volcanoes are viewed from a safe distance. Here, people stand close enough to hear the explosions. Rising from Tanna Island in the South Pacific, Mount Yasur is often described as one of the most accessible active volcanoes in the world. Visitors can drive almost to the rim and watch eruptions from viewpoints overlooking the crater. That accessibility is exactly what makes the experience so unforgettable and so dangerous. Every few minutes, the volcano can launch glowing rocks hundreds of feet into the air. Some eruptions are small. Others are powerful enough to send volcanic bombs crashing back onto the slopes surrounding the crater. For local communities, Yasur is more than a tourist attraction. It has been part of daily life for centuries. Many indigenous stories describe the volcano as a living presence, and even today, people carefully monitor its activity. Standing on the rim after sunset is something few visitors ever forget. The ground vibrates beneath your feet. A deep rumble rises from below. Then, without warning, another explosion lights up the night sky. It's a reminder that the earth beneath us is never truly still. At sea level, breathing feels effortless. Near the summit of Mount Everest, every step can feel like a struggle. At 29,032 feet, or 8,849 meters, Everest is the highest mountain on Earth. It has become a symbol of exploration, achievement, and human ambition. Yet it remains one of the most dangerous environments many people will ever enter. Above roughly 26,000 feet, or nearly 8,000 meters, climbers enter what mountaineers call the death zone. At that altitude, the human body begins to deteriorate faster than it can recover. Oxygen levels are so low that even simple tasks become exhausting. The dangers don't stop there. Avalanches, hidden crevasses, extreme cold, and sudden weather changes have claimed hundreds of lives over the decades. Even experienced climbers can find themselves trapped by conditions that shift within hours. Yet every year, people continue to make the journey. Not because Everest is safe, but because standing on the roof of the world remains one of the greatest challenges in adventure travel. And as intimidating as the highest mountain on Earth may be, there is another place where the danger doesn't come from altitude at all. Located in northern Ethiopia, the Danakil Depression sits more than 400 feet, or about 120 meters below sea level. It is one of the hottest inhabited places on Earth, where daytime temperatures frequently exceed 110 degrees Fahrenheit or 43 degrees Celsius. But the heat is only part of the story. What makes Danakil so extraordinary is what lies beneath the surface. This region sits at the meeting point of three tectonic plates that are slowly pulling apart. In other words, the Earth's crust is literally tearing itself open. The result is a landscape filled with acidic pools, sulfur vents, salt formations, and colors so vivid that many first-time visitors assume the footage has been edited. For centuries, afar salt miners have crossed this hostile terrain with camel caravans, harvesting blocks of salt under conditions that few outsiders would willingly endure. Standing here feels less like visiting a destination and more like stepping into a glimpse of Earth's distant past, or perhaps another planet entirely. Yet even this landscape, shaped by forces deep underground, remains surprisingly quiet compared to what awaits where the ocean itself becomes the danger. For sailors, there are few names more intimidating than this one. Stretching between South America and Antarctica, the Drake Passage is where the Atlantic, Pacific, and Southern Oceans collide. With no major landmass to slow them down, powerful currents and winds can circle the planet almost uninterrupted. The result is one of the roughest stretches of water on Earth. Crossing the passage can be completely calm, or it can feel like sailing through a washing machine the size of an ocean. Waves exceeding 40 feet, or more than 12 meters, are not unheard of. During severe conditions, ships can pitch dramatically from side to side, sending passengers scrambling to hold on to anything stable. Yet thousands of travelers willingly make the journey every year. Why? Because beyond those turbulent waters lies one of the most remote continents on Earth. Experienced expedition leaders often joke that the Drake Passage serves as Antarctica's gatekeeper. If you want to reach the White Continent, you must first earn it. There are places where volcanoes are part of the scenery. And then there is Kamchatka. This remote peninsula in Russia's Far East contains more than 300 volcanoes, with around 30 still active today. Seen from above, the landscape looks almost prehistoric. Snow-covered peaks rise above vast wilderness, while plumes of steam drift from craters scattered across the region. The scale is difficult to comprehend. Some eruptions here have sent ash clouds miles into the atmosphere, disrupting air traffic far beyond Russia itself. Others have reshaped valleys and created entirely new features in the landscape. Yet, despite the danger, wildlife thrives. Brown bears, foxes, and eagles roam a region that remains one of the least populated wilderness areas on the planet. For travelers, Kamchatka offers something increasingly rare: the chance to witness geological forces operating on a massive scale without crowds, cities, or modern development dominating the view. It is a reminder that the Earth is still changing, even if most of those changes happen far from where most people live. Stretching across the border between Argentina and Brazil, Iguazu Falls consists of nearly 300 separate cascades spread across almost 1.7 miles, or about 2.7 kilometers. Unlike many famous waterfalls, this isn't a single drop. It's an entire network of plunging rivers, cliffs, and churning channels. The most dangerous section is known as Devil's Throat. Here, enormous volumes of water plunge more than 260 feet, or nearly 80 meters, into a horseshoe-shaped gorge, creating clouds of mist visible from miles away. For visitors standing on the viewing platforms, the experience can feel surprisingly intense. The sound is overwhelming. The spray soaks clothing within minutes, and the river feeding the falls often appears deceptively calm just before it reaches the edge. That contrast has fascinated travelers for generations. One moment, the water drifts quietly through the rainforest. The next, it disappears into one of the most powerful waterfall systems on Earth. Yet gravity is only one way nature reveals its strength. Most glaciers are retreating. This one is still moving forward. Located in Argentina's Patagonia region, Perito Moreno Glacier stretches nearly 19 miles, or about 30 kilometers, through Los Glaciares National Park. Its towering face rises more than 240 feet, or around 74 meters, above the waters of Lake Argentino. At first glance, it appears frozen in time, but that's an illusion. The glacier is constantly moving, advancing by several feet each day, as immense pressure pushes ice downhill from the southern Patagonian ice field. Visitors quickly learn why this matters. Without warning, massive sections of ice can break away from the glacier's front wall and crash into the lake below. Some chunks are the size of buildings. The impact sends waves racing across the water and echoes through the surrounding mountains. Park rangers keep visitors at a safe distance for good reason. What looks solid and permanent is actually one of the most dynamic landscapes in South America. But even moving ice can seem peaceful compared to the place sailors spent centuries trying to avoid at all costs. For hundreds of years, reaching this place meant surviving one of the most feared journeys on Earth. Before the Panama Canal existed, ships traveling between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans had little choice but to round Cape Horn, a rocky headland at the southern tip of South America. Many never made it. The reason lies in geography. Here, powerful ocean currents collide with some of the strongest winds on the planet. Waves can rise dramatically, storms appear with little warning, and temperatures remain cold throughout much of the year. Sailors once referred to these waters with a mixture of respect and dread. Even today, modern vessels treat the region carefully. Standing on the cliffs, it is easy to understand why. There is little shelter, little comfort, and almost nothing to interrupt the endless movement of the Southern Ocean. Yet that same danger is what attracts travelers. To reach Cape Horn is to visit one of the last places on Earth where nature still dictates the rules. Most coastlines are shaped over thousands of years. Here, they can change overnight. Located on Hawaii's Big Island, Kilauea is one of the most active volcanoes on Earth. For decades, it has been creating new land by sending rivers of molten rock toward the Pacific Ocean. At first, the lava seems almost slow. Bright orange streams creep across the landscape at walking pace, but appearances can be deceiving. Fresh lava can exceed 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 1,100 degrees Celsius. Anything caught in its path, roads, forests, homes, simply ceases to exist. During major eruptions, entire neighborhoods have been consumed by advancing lava flows. Yet the danger doesn't stop there. When lava enters the ocean, it creates explosive reactions that can send scalding water, acidic steam, and fragments of volcanic glass into the air. Scientists even have a name for these toxic clouds: lays, a combination of lava and haze. Despite the risks, Kilauea attracts visitors from around the world. Few places offer the chance to watch the Earth actively building new terrain in real time. And while molten rock can reshape a coastline, there is a place where nature's power comes from something far older, an entire continent buried beneath ice. At first glance, Antarctica looks peaceful. White mountains, floating icebergs, silent bays filled with penguins. But beneath that beauty lies one of the most extreme environments on Earth. The Antarctic Peninsula stretches towards South America like a frozen spear, offering some of the most accessible landscapes on the continent. It is also one of the few places where travelers can witness the immense power of polar ice up close. Here, glaciers flow slowly toward the sea, feeding icebergs that can be larger than city blocks. Some rise more than 200 feet, or over 60 meters, above the water, while most of their mass remains hidden below the surface. That hidden mass is what makes them dangerous. A seemingly stable iceberg can suddenly roll, crack, or collapse without warning. Even expedition ships maintain a respectful distance. Yet the greater force is not a single iceberg. It is the scale of the continent itself. Antarctica contains roughly 90% of the world's ice and about 70% of its fresh water. Standing here, it becomes clear that this frozen wilderness is not just another destination. It is one of the most powerful natural systems on the planet. Some volcanoes rise alone. This one shares the landscape with several others. Located in eastern Java, the Bromo Tengger caldera is one of the most dramatic volcanic regions in Indonesia. From above, it resembles a giant bowl nearly 6 miles, or about 10 kilometers across. Inside that bowl stands Mount Bromo, one of the country's most active volcanoes. Every year, thousands of travelers arrive before sunrise to watch the landscape emerge from the darkness. As the first light reaches the caldera, clouds drift through the valleys and volcanic peaks appear above them like islands. It's an unforgettable sight, but it is also a reminder that this landscape remains active. Mount Bromo regularly releases ash and volcanic gases. Eruptions occasionally force temporary closures and disrupt nearby communities. In 2010 and again in later years, significant ash clouds affected both tourism and local transportation. The region is also deeply connected to the Tengger people, who continue to perform ceremonies honoring the volcano and the forces that shape their homeland. For centuries, sailors feared seeing this coastline, not because reaching it was difficult, because escaping it often wasn't. Stretching along Namibia's remote Atlantic shore, the Skeleton Coast is one of the most hostile environments in Africa. Here, the cold Benguela Current collides with warm desert air, creating dense fog that can appear with little warning. For ships navigating these waters, that combination proved disastrous. Over the years, countless vessels ran aground along the coast. Once stranded, crews faced an almost impossible situation. Behind them lay the Atlantic Ocean. Ahead stretched hundreds of miles of arid desert, with little fresh water and almost no shelter. Many never made it out. Today, rusting shipwrecks still emerge from the sand, serving as reminders of how dangerous this coastline can be. And while fog and isolation have doomed ships for centuries, another force is capable of destroying entire landscapes without moving at all. Some of the largest icebergs on Earth begin their journey here. Located on Greenland's west coast, Ilulissat Icefjord receives ice from the Cermak Glacier, one of the fastest-moving glaciers in the world. Every day, enormous amounts of ice flow toward the sea, where they eventually break apart and drift into the North Atlantic. The scale is difficult to appreciate until you see it in person. Some icebergs rise more than 300 feet, or over 90 meters above the water. Because roughly 90% of an iceberg remains hidden below the surface, the true size is even greater. That hidden mass is what makes them dangerous. A seemingly stable iceberg can fracture without warning. Entire sections can collapse into the water, creating waves powerful enough to affect nearby boats. Even experienced guides treat these giants with caution. Yet this place is about more than danger. For thousands of years, Inuit communities have lived alongside these icy waters, adapting to one of the harshest environments on Earth. And if frozen water can command such respect, imagine what happens when powerful winds, towering cliffs, and an unforgiving ocean meet in the middle of the North Atlantic. Located between Iceland, Norway, and Scotland, the Faroe Islands are famous for dramatic landscapes, steep sea cliffs, and rapidly changing weather. On some days, visibility can change completely within minutes. One moment, the islands appear calm. The next, powerful winds sweep across the cliffs, while waves crash hundreds of feet below. The Faroe Islands sit directly in the path of North Atlantic weather systems. Storms arriving from the ocean encounter rugged terrain that amplifies their impact, creating conditions that have shaped local life for centuries. For generations, Faroese communities depended on the sea for survival. Fishing remains central to life here, despite waters that can become dangerous with little warning. The islands are also home to some of the tallest sea cliffs in Europe. In places, the drop to the ocean exceeds 2,000 feet or more than 600 meters. Visitors often arrive expecting peaceful landscapes. They leave with a deeper appreciation for how quickly nature can take control. Because here, the danger rarely announces itself. It arrives with a sudden gust, a shifting current, or a wall of fog moving across the sea. And ahead lies a place where danger takes a very different form. At first glance, the water looks harmless. In fact, under the right light, it can appear almost beautiful. Shades of red, orange, and pink stretch across the surface, creating one of the most unusual landscapes in Africa. But appearances can be dangerously misleading. Fed by mineral-rich hot springs and surrounded by volcanic terrain, Lake Natron is one of the most alkaline lakes on Earth. In some areas, water temperatures can exceed 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius, while the lake's chemistry is harsh enough to irritate skin and eyes. That combination creates an environment where very few animals can survive. Yet one species has turned this apparent disadvantage into an opportunity. Millions of lesser flamingos gather here because the conditions that repel predators help protect their nesting sites. The result is one of the largest flamingo breeding grounds on the planet. For travelers, the lake feels almost surreal. Vast salt flats shimmer in the heat. Flamingos fill the horizon. Nearby rises Old Oino Lengai, the only active volcano on Earth that erupts carbonatite lava. It is a place where beauty and danger exist side by side. Stretching along Namibia's Atlantic coast, the Namib Desert is considered one of the oldest deserts on Earth. Its towering dunes rise hundreds of feet above the surrounding landscape, with some exceeding 1,000 feet or more than 300 meters. Standing on top of one feels like standing on a frozen wave. Yet these dunes are not frozen at all. Every gust of wind slowly reshapes them. Sand moves constantly, altering ridges, slopes, and valleys across an environment that appears unchanged from a distance. The danger here comes from isolation. Temperatures can soar during the day, water is scarce, and navigation becomes surprisingly difficult once familiar landmarks disappear behind endless walls of sand. Still, life survives. Beetles collect moisture from fog. Oryx wander across the dunes. Even small geckos have adapted to conditions that seem impossible. Visitors often arrive expecting emptiness. Instead, they discover one of the most dynamic landscapes on Earth. And if wind can sculpt mountains of sand over millions of years, imagine what it can accomplish when combined with some of the strongest currents and storms in the Arctic. Few places make people feel farther from civilization. Situated halfway between mainland Norway and the North Pole, Svalbard sits at the edge of the inhabited world. The landscape is dominated by glaciers, frozen mountains, and vast stretches of tundra where nature remains firmly in control. One rule becomes clear almost immediately: never leave town without protection. Polar bears roam much of the archipelago, and encounters, while rare, are taken seriously. Visitors venturing beyond settlements are often required to carry firearms or travel with trained guides. But wildlife is only part of the story. Winter darkness can last for months. Temperatures regularly plunge far below freezing. Sea ice, storms, and shifting weather continue to shape life here, just as they have for centuries. Despite these challenges, people still come. They come to witness glaciers calving into the sea, to experience the northern lights, and to explore one of the planet's last great wildernesses. And yet, even this frozen frontier contains only a fraction of the ice found elsewhere. What if the danger isn't what you can see? What if it's what's hidden beneath your feet? Covering roughly 3,100 square miles, or about 8,100 square kilometers, Vatnajökull is Europe's largest glacier. From above, it appears calm. Endless fields of ice stretch toward the horizon, interrupted only by mountains and deep crevasses. But beneath that frozen surface lies something unexpected. Several active volcanoes are buried under the glacier. This combination of fire and ice creates one of the most unpredictable landscapes in Iceland. When volcanic eruptions occur beneath the glacier, the heat can melt enormous quantities of ice in a short period of time, releasing sudden floods known as jökullaups. Some of these floods have carried more water than the Amazon River. Few places demonstrate the constant battle between opposing forces quite like Vatnajökull. And while ice can hide volcanoes beneath its surface, elsewhere in Iceland, water reveals its power in a far more dramatic way. Dettifoss is often described as Europe's most powerful waterfall, and standing beside it makes that reputation easy to understand. Every second, enormous volumes of water surge through the Ilulissat Icefjord River before plunging into a canyon below. The waterfall drops roughly 144 feet, or 44 meters. That may not sound extraordinary compared to some of the world's tallest waterfalls. The real story is volume. During peak flow, more than 5,000 cubic feet of water, or around 500 cubic meters, can thunder over the edge every second. The force is immense. Mist rises from the canyon. Rocks vibrate beneath your feet. Conversation becomes difficult as the roar fills the air. Unlike some famous waterfalls protected by extensive barriers, parts of the viewing area here feel surprisingly raw. Visitors are reminded that the attraction itself is also the hazard. The same water that draws people here could sweep away anyone who loses respect for its power. Yet water is only one of Iceland's forces. At first, it looks peaceful. Chunks of blue ice drift slowly across still water while seals surface between them. Few visitors would describe the scene as dangerous. But Jökulsárlón exists because one of Iceland's largest glaciers is retreating. Every iceberg floating in the lagoon was once part of a massive wall of ice that has broken away and begun moving toward the Atlantic Ocean. Some of these icebergs weigh thousands of tons, and they are constantly changing. A seemingly stable iceberg can suddenly roll, crack, or split apart as melting alters its balance. Large waves occasionally ripple across the lagoon without warning. Even experienced boat operators maintain safe distances from unstable ice. What makes the place remarkable is that it allows visitors to witness a process that normally happens on a scale too large to appreciate. The landscape is changing in real time. Ice forms, ice breaks, ice drifts away. The cycle never stops. Some places don't have to be extreme all the time to be dangerous. They simply wait for the weather to change. Across southern Argentina and Chile, Patagonia is famous for its glaciers, mountains, and vast open spaces. But among climbers, sailors, and trekkers, it is equally famous for something less predictable: the wind. Powerful air currents race across the region, sometimes reaching speeds of more than 100 miles per hour, or around 160 kilometers per hour. A calm morning can become a challenging afternoon within a matter of hours. Few landmarks illustrate this better than the granite peaks of Torres del Paine and Fitzroy. Their jagged profiles force weather systems upward, creating conditions that can shift dramatically in a very short time. For hikers, preparation is essential. Strong winds have knocked people off their feet. Sudden storms have stranded expeditions. Temperatures can drop rapidly even during the summer season. Yet Patagonia continues to attract adventurers from around the world, because when conditions cooperate, the scenery is among the most spectacular anywhere on Earth. The challenge is that nature rarely guarantees cooperation. Rising from the Tyrrhenian Sea north of Sicily, Stromboli has been erupting almost continuously for over 2,000 years. Ancient sailors even used it as a natural lighthouse, navigating by the glow of its eruptions. At first, that might not sound particularly dangerous. After all, people live here. Visitors hike here. Boats bring tourists here every day. But Stromboli's activity is exactly what makes it unpredictable. Small explosions occur regularly, sending ash, gas, and volcanic fragments into the air. In 2019, a powerful eruption sent ash thousands of feet into the sky and forced evacuations from parts of the island. Despite those risks, people continue to visit. Standing on the slopes after sunset, watching bursts of glowing lava illuminate the darkness, is an experience few forget. At first glance, it looks impossible. Thousands of razor-sharp limestone pinnacles rise from the ground, creating one of the strangest landscapes on Earth. Known as the Tsingy de Bemaraha, this protected region of western Madagascar was formed over millions of years as water slowly dissolved ancient limestone deposits. The result is a vast stone forest stretching across the horizon. Some of these formations tower more than 300 feet, or about 90 meters, above the surrounding terrain. What makes them dangerous is not their height, it's their shape. Many of the limestone spires are so sharp that the local name, Tsingy, is often translated as where one cannot walk barefoot. Even experienced guides must follow carefully planned routes through the maze-like formations. For wildlife, however, the landscape has become a refuge. Lemurs, birds, and reptiles have adapted to an environment that naturally limits human access. For visitors, the experience feels unlike anywhere else on the planet. Every bridge, ladder, and narrow passage serves as a reminder that nature doesn't need fire, ice, or storms to create danger. Sometimes water and time are more than enough. Death Valley holds the record for the highest air temperature ever reliably recorded on Earth, 134 degrees Fahrenheit, or 56.7 degrees Celsius. Even on an ordinary summer day, temperatures frequently exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit, or nearly 50 degrees Celsius. At those levels, the environment itself becomes a challenge. Water disappears from the body faster than many people realize. Vehicles overheat, tires fail. Simple mistakes can become serious emergencies within hours. Yet despite its intimidating reputation, Death Valley is far from lifeless. Wildflowers occasionally bloom after rare rains. Coyotes, bighorn sheep, and desert tortoises survive in conditions that seem impossible. Beneath the surface, entire ecosystems have adapted to one of the harshest climates in North America. Visitors often arrive expecting emptiness. Instead, they discover colorful canyons, salt flats, sand dunes, and mountain ranges stretching across the horizon. But the heat never fully disappears from the story. It is always there, quietly reminding everyone who enters that nature does not need storms or eruptions to be dangerous. Mount Etna dominates eastern Sicily, rising more than 11,000 feet, or roughly 3,350 meters, above the Mediterranean. It is Europe's largest active volcano, and one of the most active on the planet. That activity has shaped the region for thousands of years. Entire towns have learned to live alongside the volcano. Vineyards thrive in volcanic soil. Roads and buildings have been rebuilt after eruptions. Life continues, even when the mountain reminds everyone that it is still active, and it does so frequently. Etna regularly produces lava flows, ash clouds, and explosive eruptions visible from great distances. In some years, activity occurs dozens of times. What makes the volcano fascinating is the balance between danger and opportunity. The same eruptions capable of threatening communities have also created some of Sicily's most fertile farmland. Visitors can hike across ancient lava fields, explore volcanic craters, and witness landscapes that are constantly evolving. Few places demonstrate humanity's long relationship with natural hazards so clearly. From giant waves and erupting volcanoes to glaciers, deserts, and some of the harshest environments on Earth, every place we visited today reveals the same truth. Nature doesn't need to be angry to be dangerous. These forces are always there, shaping landscapes, testing limits, and reminding us that no matter how advanced we become, some powers remain far beyond our control. And perhaps that's why people continue to visit them.